Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the late-day luminescence, geometric shadows danced across a humble space. Someone's sprawling figure was wrapped up in precision, applying the opening touches of the cosmetic compound to their face with a minor quiver in their grasp. The moment whispered with quiet rebellion, an unspoken dissonance between society's mold and the essence of this soul. He, Christopher, with unshaven bristles now masked, navigated the intricacies of self-expression once hidden. As he worked, the accumulated practice began to show, however slightly, on the face reflected on the screen. The face in the mirror looked softer now, the angles less harsh. The powder smoothed away the last masculine edges, creating a canvas that felt more honest than anything he'd presented to the world before. The dorm room's silence wrapped around him like a protective cocoon. His roommate Marcus had basketball practice until 6, giving Christopher these precious hours alone. The pink blouse he'd ordered online hung loose on his broad shoulders, but the soft fabric felt right against his skin. The flowing skirt draped around his legs was a revelation, a freedom he'd denied himself for far too long. "Just a bit more blending here," he murmured to himself, following the instructions from the paused video.
"And then the eyeshadow."
He reached for the palette of mauves and pinks, colors that the beauty guru promised would make blue eyes pop. Christopher had studied these tutorials like exam material, absorbing techniques and terminology with the same intensity he brought to his engineering classes. The world beyond this room had no idea. Not his parents back in Minnesota, certainly not the professors who praised his analytical mind, not even the handful of friends who thought they knew him. Only here, in these stolen moments, could he glimpse the person struggling to emerge. The eyeshadow brush hovered near his lid when the unmistakable sound of a key in the lock shattered his concentration. The door swung open before Christopher could move, before he could hide or explain or even breathe. Marcus stood frozen in the doorway, gym bag slung over one shoulder, basketball shorts still damp with sweat. His eyes widened as they took in Christopher's appearance. The makeup, the pink blouse, the skirt pooled around his chair.
"What the—"
Marcus stopped mid-sentence, his expression cycling rapidly through shock, confusion, and something Christopher couldn't quite identify. The brushes slipped from Christopher's fingers, clattering against the desk. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might crack his ribs. This wasn't how anyone was supposed to find out. Not like this. Not unprepared, not vulnerable, not with half-finished makeup and fear closing his throat. "Practice ended early," Marcus said unnecessarily, his voice unnaturally flat. Christopher couldn't speak. Years of careful compartmentalization crumbled in an instant. The shame he'd fought against rose like a tide, threatening to drown him. He stared at his roommate, waiting for disgust or anger or mockery.
"I should have texted,"
Marcus added, still lingering in the doorway, like he wasn't sure whether to enter his own room.
"I can explain,"
Christopher finally managed, though he had no idea what explanation would suffice. His hand moved instinctively to wipe away the makeup, to erase the evidence, but he stopped himself. No more hiding. Whatever happened next, he couldn't keep pretending. Marcus stepped inside and closed the door. The small click of the latch sounded final, inescapable. He set his gym bag down carefully, movements deliberate, as if approaching a startled animal.
"You don't have to explain anything,"
he said, though his voice suggested he was trying to convince himself as much as Christopher. The silence stretched between them, filled with unasked questions. Christopher's fingers twisted the fabric of the skirt, the soft material bunching between his hands. "This isn't a joke or a costume," Christopher said finally, the words rushing out. This is me. The real me." Marcus nodded slowly, processing. He'd known Christopher for nearly 3 years. They'd shared late-night study sessions, celebrated victories, weathered disappointments. They weren't best friends, but they were more than just roommates. "How long have you—" Marcus gestured vaguely at Christopher's appearance. "Forever," Christopher answered, the single word carrying the weight of a lifetime.
"I've felt this way forever, but I've only had the courage to explore it recently."
Marcus pulled out his desk chair and sat, leaning forward with elbows on knees. His basketball shoes left small smudges of red court dust on the linoleum floor.
"So you're transgender?"
The word sounded careful in Marcus's mouth, like he was making sure to pronounce it correctly. Christopher nodded, relief washing through him at saying it aloud.
"Yes, I am.
I've been researching hormone therapy. I was planning to start after graduation."
"What should I call you?"
Marcus asked after another pause.
"Do you have a different name?"
The question caught Christopher off guard. Of all the responses he'd feared, practical consideration hadn't been among them.
"Ramona,"
he said softly. The name he'd chosen months ago, whispered to himself in empty rooms, written in private journals, but never spoken aloud to another person until now. "I'd like to be called Ramona."
"Ramona,"
Marcus repeated, testing the name. He nodded again.
"Okay."
The simple acknowledgement brought unexpected tears to Christopher's eyes, smudging the carefully applied mascara. He wiped them away with trembling fingers. "You're not disgusted?" he asked, needing confirmation. Marcus shook his head.
"Surprised, yeah. But my cousin transitioned a few years back. It was tough for everyone at first, especially my aunt and uncle, but he's so much happier now."
He paused.
"Sorry, she's happier now."
"Thank you," Ramona whispered. "For what?" "For not hating me. For not making this harder than it already is." Marcus shrugged. "Look, I'm not saying I understand everything about this, but you're still the same person who helped me pass calculus last year. You're still the same person who knows exactly how I like my coffee when we pull all-nighters. That stuff doesn't change." Ramona felt something unclench inside her chest, a tension she'd carried for so long she'd forgotten it wasn't part of her natural state. "I wasn't planning on anyone finding out yet," she admitted. "I'm still figuring things out."
"Your secret's safe with me,"
Marcus promised. He glanced at the makeup spread across the desk, the tutorials still playing silently on the laptop.
"But you know, if you're going to do this, you should at least learn from someone who knows what they're doing. My sister is amazing with makeup. Maybe I could ask her for some tips, not mentioning you." He added quickly, "Just saying I have a friend who needs help."
The offer, so unexpected and kind, left Ramona speechless. She nodded, fresh tears threatening to fall.
"I think I'm going to grab dinner,"
Marcus said, standing up.
"Take an hour or so. Give you some space."
"You don't have to leave." "I know, but I figure you might want some time. And honestly, I could use a few minutes to adjust, too." His smile was genuine, if a little uncertain.
"This is new for both of us."
After Marcus left, Ramona turned back to the mirror. The face that looked back at her was smudged and tear-streaked, but more real than it had ever been. For the first time, someone else had seen her, truly seen her, and hadn't turned away. She picked up the makeup remover, deciding to start fresh. There would be time to practice, to improve. There would be time for everything, now that the hardest step had been taken. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of discovery and disclosure. Within the safety of their dorm room, Marcus became the first person to consistently use Ramona's chosen name, correcting himself with increasing rarity when he slipped. Outside those walls, Christopher still existed, attending classes, meeting professors, fulfilling the expectations of the life built over 22 years. But that facade grew more difficult to maintain as Ramona emerged more fully. "You've lost weight," commented Dr. Fellows after their weekly advanced engineering seminar. "Are you taking care of yourself, Christopher?" It wasn't weight loss, but the effects of carefully researched muscle reduction exercises and subtle changes in diet. Ramona had been preparing her body, softening edges, creating a form that might someday match her internal image. "Just busy with senior projects," she replied, the name Christopher creating its usual internal discord. The dual existence became increasingly exhausting. Ramona in private, Christopher in public. The division felt less like protection and more like imprisonment with each passing day. 2 months after Marcus's discovery, Ramona sat cross-legged on her bed, laptop open to a medical clinic's website. The words hormone replacement therapy glowed on the screen, along with appointment availability for consultations.
"Are you sure you don't want to wait until after graduation?"
Marcus asked from his desk, where he was supposedly working on a term paper but had been watching Ramona stare at the screen for 20 minutes. "I can't wait anymore," Ramona said. "Every day feels like lying, and summer break is coming up. If I start now, maybe there will be noticeable changes before I have to see my parents." The thought of her parents twisted her stomach into knots. Conservative, loving in their way, but utterly unprepared for their only son to announce he was their daughter. The coming conversation loomed like a storm on the horizon. "You're going to have to tell them eventually," Marcus pointed out gently. "I know." "But I want to have something tangible first. I want to be able to say, 'This is who I am,' without them thinking it's just some phase or confusion." She clicked on the appointment scheduler, her finger hovering over the trackpad. "Besides, it takes months for hormones to create visible changes. I'll have time to figure out how to tell them." The appointment was set for the following Tuesday, conveniently between classes. Ramona closed the laptop and leaned back against the wall, relieved and terrified in equal measure. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said after a moment. "Sure. When did you know? I mean, really know?" Ramona smiled sadly. "I think I always knew something wasn't right. When I was little, maybe 5 or 6, I used to pray every night that I'd wake up as a girl. I thought God had made a mistake." She shook her head at the memory. "But I buried it. My dad was so proud to have a son. My mom kept talking about what a handsome young man I was becoming. It seemed easier to try to be what they wanted. And now? Now I understand you can't outrun yourself forever. The person I was pretending to be was exhausting me." She gestured to the laptop. "This feels like finally being able to breathe." Marcus nodded. "For what it's worth, Ramona suits you better than Christopher ever did." The simple observation warmed her more than elaborate praise could have. The medical clinic was modern and bright. Walls painted a soothing teal that failed to calm Ramona's racing heart. She'd worn masculine clothes for the trip across campus, jeans and a loose button-down, but had carefully applied concealer to hide the stubble and styled her growing blonde hair to look as feminine as possible without drawing attention. Dr. Rivera was a woman in her 50s with salt and pepper hair and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She reviewed Ramona's intake forms, noting the birth name and the chosen name with equal professional courtesy. "So, Ramona," she said, setting down the clipboard. "Tell me about your journey." The question opened a floodgate. Ramona spoke about childhood confusion, adolescent repression, college revelation. She described the makeup tutorials, the secret clothes, the name she'd chosen for herself. She talked about Marcus's unexpected support and her parents' expected rejection. Dr. Rivera listened without interruption, occasionally making notes, but mostly maintaining eye contact, her expression attentive and non-judgmental. "What are your expectations for hormone therapy?" she asked, when Ramona finally fell silent. "I want my outside to match my inside," Ramona answered simply. "I want to look in the mirror and recognize myself." Dr. Rivera nodded. "Hormone therapy will create changes, but it's important to have realistic expectations about timeline and results. Estrogen will redistribute fat, soften skin, reduce muscle mass, and eventually develop breast tissue. It won't change bone structure, height, or completely eliminate the need for hair removal." She continued explaining medical details, potential side effects, fertility implications. Ramona absorbed every word, the reality of the path ahead, both daunting and thrilling. "If you decide to proceed, we'll do blood work today and start you on a low dose to monitor how your body responds. We'll increase gradually to minimize side effects while maximizing feminization." "I want to proceed," Ramona said, without hesitation. "Take these information packets home. Read them carefully. Talk to your support system. If you still feel certain next week, we'll begin treatment." Ramona clutched the information packets all the way back to the dorm, as if they might dissolve if she loosened her grip. Each page detailed another step toward becoming herself, the self she'd glimpsed only in private moments and dreams. The first estrogen pill felt momentous, though Dr. Rivera had warned it would be weeks before Ramona noticed any physical changes. Still, knowing the hormones were in her system created a profound psychological shift. Something had begun that couldn't be easily reversed. Marcus celebrated the milestone by bringing cupcakes with pink frosting back to the dorm, a gesture so unexpected that Ramona hugged him impulsively.
"First day of the rest of your life, right?"
he said, embarrassed but pleased by her reaction. They settled into a routine: medications in the morning, classes during the day, study sessions at night where Marcus would consistently use she and her when referring to Ramona's contributions to group projects, a small but meaningful affirmation. Inside their room, Ramona dressed as herself more frequently. Her wardrobe expanded slowly: a cardigan ordered online, a scarf from a thrift store, shoes in increasingly feminine styles, but still plausibly unisex to the casual observer. The subtle physical changes began around the 6th week. Her skin softened noticeably. Her cheeks rounded slightly. The persistent body odor that had always bothered her diminished. Small victories, invisible to others, but monumental to her. "Your hair is getting long," Marcus observed one evening as Ramona studied for finals, absently tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. "Too noticeable?" she asked anxiously. Her parents were expecting their son home for summer break in just 3 weeks. "No, it suits you. Very early 90s grunge musician. Very cool." The comment eased her worry temporarily, but the approaching summer loomed like a sentence. 3 months living as Christopher again. 3 months pretending. 3 months of potential discovery if the hormones worked faster than expected. I could tell them I got an internship. She mused aloud one night. Stay here for the summer. And do what for money? Where would you live? Marcus asked, practically. The dorms close in 3 weeks. Ramona sighed. I know. I just don't think I can go backward. Not now. So don't go backward, Marcus said. Go forward. What do you mean? Tell them, before you go home. Give them time to process while you're still here, and then when you arrive, they'll have at least had some warning. The suggestion triggered immediate panic. I can't tell them over the phone. That's not...
Not over the phone,
Marcus interrupted.
Invite them here, for graduation. Tell them in person, but on your turf, with support systems in place. If it goes badly, you have people here who know the real you.
The idea took root. Terrifying, but possible. A chance to face the inevitable on somewhat favorable terms. Graduation was 2 weeks away when Ramona's parents arrived for their visit. She'd reserved them a hotel room near campus, suggesting they come early to help pack up the dorm and discuss post-graduation plans. Her mother had been thrilled at the invitation. We've barely seen you all year, she'd said during their weekly phone call. Your father and I were just saying how much we miss having you home. Guilt had twisted in Ramona's stomach. They missed Christopher, not her. They missed a son who had never really existed. The campus coffee shop was neutral territory, public enough to discourage extreme reactions, but private enough for difficult conversations. Ramona arrived early, claiming a corner table. She wore jeans and a pale blue button-down that could read as either masculine or feminine. A deliberate choice for this liminal moment. Her parents spotted her immediately, her mother's face lighting up with the familiar smile that had comforted Ramona throughout childhood. They looked exactly as they always had, her father in khakis and a golf shirt, her mother in practical slacks and a floral blouse. The normality of their appearance made what she was about to do seem even more momentous. There's our graduate! Her mother called, hurrying over to envelop her in a hug that smelled of home and safety and the past. Oh, your hair's gotten so long. Don't they have barbers in this town?
Leave the boy alone, Margaret,
her father said, clasping Ramona's shoulder firmly.
Long hair's in style again.
The gendered terms, boy, son, landed like small cuts, but Ramona forced a smile. It's good to see you both. Thanks for coming early. They settled at the table with coffees, catching up on family news. Uncle Rob's hip replacement, Cousin Denise's new baby, the neighbor's troublesome dog, mundane details of a life Ramona had been absent from and would never fully rejoin, at least not as the person they expected.
You look different,
her mother said suddenly, studying her face.
Have you lost weight?
It was the opening Ramona had been waiting for, though her prepared speech evaporated under her mother's scrutiny. I've been going through some changes, she managed. Her father chuckled.
That's college for you. Changes you in ways you don't expect.
He sipped his coffee.
Speaking of which,
have you decided on that job offer in Chicago? Moving to a big city would be quite a change from Minneapolis.
The job isn't what I need to talk to you about.
Ramona took a deep breath, steadying herself. Mom, Dad, I've discovered something about myself this year. Something important. Something I have known deep down for a long time, but haven't had the courage to face until recently. Her parents exchanged glances, concern replacing casual interest.
You're not in some kind of trouble, are you?
her father asked.
Because whatever it is, we can work it out.
I'm not in trouble, Ramona assured him. But this will probably be difficult for you to hear. Another breath. I'm transgender. I'm a woman. I've started hormone therapy, and after graduation, I'll be living as my authentic self, as Ramona. The silence that followed seemed to stretch for eternity. Her mother's face went through a series of expressions too rapid to track. Her father became completely still, his coffee cup suspended halfway to his mouth.
This is a joke,
he said finally, his voice flat.
Some kind of senior prank.
It's not a joke, Dad. Ramona's voice remained steady despite the trembling in her hands. I've felt this way my entire life. I've just never had the words for it until recently. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. But you never showed any signs. You played sports. You had girlfriends. I was trying to be what I thought you wanted, Ramona explained gently. I was trying to convince myself as much as everyone else.
This is ridiculous,
her father snapped, setting down his cup with enough force to slosh coffee onto the table.
You can't just decide to be a woman because it's trendy or because you're confused about your place in the world.
I didn't decide anything, Dad. This is who I am, who I've always been.
No.
He shook his head firmly.
The son we raised for 22 years is who you've always been. This is something else. Some kind of phase or confusion that these liberal professors have put in your head.
Ramona had expected resistance, even anger, but the flat denial still stung. It's not a phase. It's not confusion. It's my identity. And I'm not asking for your permission. I'm hoping for your understanding, but I'll move forward with or without it. Her mother reached across the table, grasping Ramona's hand. Honey, if you're struggling with something, we can get you help. Real help. From professionals who won't just tell you what you want to hear. The assumption that she hadn't thought this through, hadn't already sought professional guidance, ignited a flare of frustration. I am getting help, Mom. From doctors and therapists who specialize in gender identity. This isn't a whim or a trend. This is medical science and my personal truth. Her father stood abruptly. I need some air. This is too much. Robert, wait! Her mother called, but he was already striding toward the door. Ramona watched him go, a hollow feeling spreading through her chest. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I didn't want to hurt you. Her mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. I don't understand, she admitted. You were such a happy little boy, always smiling, always climbing trees and building forts. How could that child be wrong about who he was? I wasn't wrong, Ramona tried to explain. I was hiding, even from myself sometimes. Those happy moments were real, but there was always something missing, something not quite right. They talked for another hour, going in circles, her mother asking questions, some insightful, some painful in their misunderstanding. Ramona explaining as clearly as she could, drawing on months of research and years of lived experience. They were still sitting there when her father returned, his expression more controlled, but no less troubled. We should get back to the hotel, he said to his wife, not meeting Ramona's eyes. We need time to process this. Dad, Ramona began. Not now, he cut her off. I can't discuss this rationally right now. Her mother gathered her purse, looking torn between staying with her child and following her husband. We'll call you tomorrow, she promised before leaving. We're not abandoning you. We just need time. Ramona watched them leave, the conversation having gone neither as well as she'd hoped nor as badly as she'd feared. The uncertainty was its own kind of pain. Marcus was waiting when she returned to the dorm, his expression anxious. How did it go? About as expected, Ramona said, collapsing onto her bed. My dad stormed out. My mom cried. They both think it's a phase or confusion or brainwashing. But they didn't disown you, Marcus pointed out. That's something. Yet, Ramona added darkly. They didn't disown me yet. The promised call came the next morning. Her mother's voice sounded strained but determined over the phone. We'd like to have dinner tonight. Just the three of us. Your father and I have been talking. The restaurant they chose was upscale, the kind of place that implied serious conversation. Ramona arrived early, her stomach in knots. She'd dressed carefully, dark jeans, a cream-colored sweater that softened her shoulders, minimal makeup that her parents might not even notice. Her growing blonde hair was styled simply, framing her face in a way that felt authentic without being dramatically feminine. Her parents arrived together, a united front. Her father's jaw was set in that familiar way that indicated he'd made a decision. Her mother looked like she hadn't slept. They ordered food that none of them really wanted, making small talk that skirted the elephant in the room until the entrees arrived.
Your mother and I have been discussing your situation,
her father finally said, setting down his fork. We've agreed that we need professional guidance to understand what you're going through. Hope flickered briefly in Ramona's chest. I could recommend some resources about transgender experiences.
Not that kind of guidance,
her father interrupted. We've found a therapist in Minneapolis who specializes in helping people overcome gender confusion. The hope died as quickly as it had appeared. Conversion therapy doesn't work, Dad. It's been discredited by every major medical and psychological association. Don't be dramatic. Nobody's talking about conversion anything. Just someone who can help you work through these feelings without jumping to extreme solutions. Ramona took a steadying breath. I appreciate that you're trying to help in your way, but I've already found my solution. I'm already receiving medical care from experts who understand gender dysphoria.
You're making permanent changes based on temporary feelings,
her father insisted.
There's nothing temporary about this. I've felt this way my entire life.
You've been Christopher your entire life, her mother interjected softly.
We've known you as our son for 22 years. Can't you understand how difficult it is to suddenly be told that person never existed?
I do understand, Ramona said, softening her tone. And I'm not saying Christopher never existed. I'm saying Christopher was an incomplete picture, a role I was playing because I thought I had to. Her father shook his head. This isn't just about names or clothes. You said you're taking hormones. Those have serious effects, irreversible effects. That's the point, Dad. The effects are what I need to align my body with my identity. And what about children? Her mother asked. A family? Your future? My future includes being myself, Ramona said firmly. That's the foundation everything else will be built on. And there are many ways to have a family that don't require me to live a lie. The conversation continued in circles, exhausting and painful. Her parents couldn't, or wouldn't, see beyond their own shock and loss. They were mourning a son while failing to recognize the daughter sitting before them. We love you, her mother said as dinner concluded. That hasn't changed and won't change. But we need time, and we hope that you'll consider coming home this summer, talking to the therapist we found, before making irreversible decisions. Ramona shook her head. I can't go backward, Mom. I've found myself. I can't pretend again, not even temporarily.
Then where will you go?
Her father demanded. What will you do? I've accepted that job in Chicago, Ramona replied. I've found an apartment with a roommate who knows who I am. I'll be Ramona there, living authentically. You're welcome to visit any time, but only if you can respect who I am. The ultimatum hung in the air between them, a line drawn not in anger, but in self-preservation. You're choosing this lifestyle over your family? Her father's voice cracked slightly. No, Dad. I'm choosing to be honest about who I am. The choice about whether that includes family is yours. Graduation day arrived with unexpected clarity. Ramona wore the standard black robe over clothes that represented a careful compromise, feminine in cut but not overtly so, a nod to the liminal space she still occupied. Her parents attended, sitting stiffly in the audience. They had spoken little since the dinner, their communications reduced to logistical texts about graduation timing and where to meet afterward. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of speeches and formalities. When Christopher Harlow was called, Ramona walked across the stage with her head high, accepting the diploma with a firm handshake. It would be the last time she heard that name in an official capacity. Afterward, in the chaos of graduates and families, Ramona found her parents by a flowering dogwood tree. Her mother hugged her tightly, whispering, "Congratulations," in her ear. Her father shook her hand formally, his expression stoic.
We're proud of you,
he said, the words clearly genuine despite everything else left unsaid.
Your academic achievements are impressive.
Thank you, Ramona replied, accepting the partial approval for what it was. They took the obligatory photos, awkward but not hostile. As they prepared to part ways, her parents to their hotel, Ramona to a graduation party with friends, her mother pressed a small gift box into her hands. Open it later, she instructed, her eyes conveying something Ramona couldn't quite interpret. Back in her dorm room, away from the crowds and expectations, Ramona finally opened the box. Inside lay a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant shaped like a butterfly, a traditional symbol of transformation. Beneath it, a card in her mother's handwriting. We are trying to understand. It will take time, but you will always be our child, and we will always love you. Call when you're settled in Chicago. Mom and Dad. The message wasn't acceptance, not fully, but it was an opening, a willingness to try. Ramona fastened the necklace around her neck, the butterfly resting against her collarbone, a promise of metamorphosis, of beauty emerging from struggle. 3 months later, Ramona stood in front of her bathroom mirror in a sunlit Chicago apartment. The changes from hormone therapy were becoming more noticeable: softer skin, subtle shifts in facial structure, the beginning of breast development. Her blonde hair now brushed her shoulders, styled in a cut that framed her face beautifully. The butterfly necklace gleamed against her skin as she applied her makeup with practiced hands. No more tutorials needed. She'd developed her own techniques, her own style that emphasized her natural features while softening the masculine edges that remained. Her phone chimed with a text message. Her mother, checking in as she did every Sunday. The conversations were still careful, still navigating new territory, but they were talking. Her father had joined the last video call briefly. awkward but present, using her chosen name for the first time. Small steps, imperfect progress, but progress nonetheless. Ramona's roommate called from the living room, reminding her they had dinner reservations. And so, Ramona stepped into the next chapter of her life with unwavering determination. The party awaiting her presence in the office was a testament to her newfound confidence and a testament to the power of embracing one's true identity. As she opened the door, a chorus of cheers and applause washed over her, signaling the beginning of a career built on authenticity and the endless possibilities it held. In this culmination of her journey, Ramona raised her glass, ready to toast not only to the achievements ahead, but also to the strength it took to get there. A new era had begun, one where every day was a step towards the woman she was always meant to be.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!